gone through some basic definitions, some conceptual versions of those definitions, and then the application of those ideas of different types of validity to different types of scenarios. But each scenario really has one major validity element in it. What I want to work towards, what I want you to be able to do by the end of our time with validity, is to look at a complex situation, something that's going on in a school, a variety of events that have multiple validity elements. And again, validity is all about truth. And we want to make sure that the assessment data that we get gives us the truth about what we are looking for, what we're trying to measure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little scenario that describes some events that occur over a week or a month or a semester or a year. And you'll have to pull out the individual validity issues that exist. So I'm going to walk you through one or two here and then leave the last ones for you to look at yourselves, because I think you'll get the idea. So we start with Mrs. Smith teaches 4th grade social studies and decides to switch textbooks to make her classroom more up to date. Now, for each sentence you read, I want you to be thinking, is content validity potentially an issue here? Is construct validity, is predictive or concurrent validity? Are there any issues going on in here? So right away, when somebody switches textbooks, you should be thinking about content validity. Content validity, remember, is from standards to curriculum to objectives to materials to instruction to assessments. And anytime any one of those pieces switches, well, then we have a potential content validity mismatch, or we go out of alignment. Within that, it's not just the content, but the idea that we need to be at the right level of cognition. So your ears should be perking up to a content validity issue here. Next sentence, she wants to integrate more technology into the class throughout the year and begins with her lesson on English colonialism. Now, this is a social studies class. Technology is nice, technology is a tool, but it probably shouldn't be a learning objective. And so if she integrates technology, this might be a construct validity issue. Students who are familiar with it might do better than students who are not, and she has to realize that this might be something that hinders her ability to see whether or not her students are mastering the material. Instead of her usual quizzes, she wants students to create video blogs on the classroom website, sounds like fun, about life in the English colonies, demonstrating their understanding of what life was like back then. Okay, it seems like an authentic assessment, but it depends on what it's going to look like. We don't really have, this seems like good content validity because it seems to be related to English colonies and so on, and having students understand the colonial perspective for the English colonists. She will grade them based on their accents, their accurate portrayal of colonists' emotional states, and opinions, okay, and their account of major events that occurred within a 10-year period. Okay, so this right here where she's measuring their master, whether they've met the learning objectives, and she talks about or bases it in part on their accents, how accurate their accents are. And if you talk with a British accent, it's fine, but if you can't do it, it doesn't really sound that great. And I shouldn't be graded in social studies class on my acting ability. Likewise, my ability to portray different emotional states, right? So my theater students will have a leg up here, and people who don't really have a large emotional range are going to get penalized, even though it has nothing to do with social studies. So this is a construct validity issue. Other constructs, other skills are going to get in the way of accurately seeing whether or not they've mastered the content-related objectives. She uses both the video blogs and daily journal entries to figure out if they are mastering her learning objectives. So this is a nice concurrent validity issue where she's using multiple sources. That should be perking your ears right now. When it comes time to take the unit test, she feels she should still use traditional assessments, and she uses last year's test given on the last day of the unit to figure out how well the students know the material. This is problematic in terms of content validity. She has switched her materials, her objectives, her instruction, but now she's using last year's test, and it is likely that last year's test is out of alignment. Not good. So this is a bad content validity thing. Later in the year, she looks at how well students did on the relevant portion of the district test and find that there's little relationship between their overall unit scores and their performance on the district test. Wonder why. She is shocked and she wants answers. Well, you can look at this either as predictive validity, meaning that she thought that they would do well on the district test based on what they did in class, and then she found out that actually that didn't, or those classroom assessments didn't predict the district test performance. Or you can say that they are both supposed to be indicators of mastery and there is disagreement, so it is a concurrent validity issue. I would accept either one of those. What you will be doing on the first exam is something like this in the validity assessment. There'll be more to it than that, but I will be pulling out and highlighting individual sentences, and it will be up to you to tell me what type of validity is being represented. If we look at another example, it is your first year as a science teacher, and you spend part of your weekend planning outstanding lessons and learning activities for your students. Okay, nothing really going on right now. You use the school's curriculum as a guide, but add your own flair to make it more interesting for you and the students, but are sure to make it all reflect the standards. Okay, so this is a content validity issue. The flair, not sure if that could be a content violation or a construct violation, not really enough information, but this is definitely that you are using the curriculum as a guide and making sure it all reflects the standards. That's good alignment, good content validity. You even use backwards design to make the assessment before you plan your lessons, so you are setting your students up for success. Great idea. This is also an alignment or content validity issue. A good one, or a good example. Sometimes your plans do not work out well, however, and at least one day each week you have to scrap your plans and follow where the students want to go to keep them engaged. So this is a content validity issue again, because now you are deviating from the instruction that is planned. You are probably not hitting the learning objectives as well as you want, and things are getting a little bit out of alignment. So a lot of content validity stuff going on in that first part. At the end of each 2-week period, you have your students, complete the unit assessment you designed beforehand. Okay, so that again is a good example of content validity. You also find that their performance on in-class activities is moderately related with their assessment performance, noting that some objectives are very hit or miss, usually on the days you follow the student's interest. So 2 things going on here. 1 is concurrent validity because you're looking at multiple sources of data. 2 is another content validity representation in that the things that you didn't cover well obviously aren't well reflected or performance isn't good on the exam. You could also tell a predictive validity story in that you can predict that the things you cover and spend time on in class are going to be well represented on the assessment and students will do well, and the things on the assessment that you didn't cover, if you didn't cover it in class, you can predict with pretty good accuracy that students won't do well on that. So there's a lot of things and a lot of different elements you can pull out of this particular sentence. Students also complete a research project, a scientific report, during each unit that is aligned with the goals, and you combine your 3 sources of evidence together to determine your grades, weighing each of them equally. So this is similar to another example we talked about in the little scenarios. Students completing a research project, a scientific report, could be a construct issue depending on how much you count writing and so on. Combining the 3 sources of evidence that you have, classroom participation, unit project, and unit assessment, is again a construct issue because classroom participation has probably little relationship with student mastery and much more relationship with student personality. So I am letting student personality and introversion versus extroversion influence the course grades much more than they probably should be. The unit project also might, depending again on how I grade it, but I would give you a little more context if I was going to ask you a question about that. And then you find that in general, each source of data agrees with the other 2, although it is not always perfect. Now, this is where we get at the concurrent validity element or aspect of this little 3-pronged approach. You find that each one of these agree, so I'm looking at 3 different sources of evidence, each trying to measure student mastery, and so that would be a concurrent validity issue. There's one more example online. I will post all of the answers as well. If you have different interpretations, you're wondering if some kind of slant that you take on a particular sentence or the whole vignette is a little bit different than mine, let me know. It'd be great to talk about. And I recognize there are more than one possible interpretation, which keeps this interesting. All right.